Your coding agent hits an ambiguous repo change at 2 a.m., and Claude Opus 5 finishes it clean while GLM 5.2 spins out on overthinking, and MiniMax M3 gives you no spec sheet to even debug against. Reasoning flagship, open weight budget model, or dark horse challenger? One of these is the right build for your agent stack, and the answer flips depending on whether you need first try reliability or cheap tokens. Test 1. Overall reasoning and coding benchmarks. Every time your model fails a hard repo task on the first try, you're paying twice, once for the bad run and again for the retry tokens. Across 50 tasks on Goldie Bench, one model's first attempt accuracy is the number that decides whether your agent bill doubles every sprint. I looked at the Goldie Bench head-to-head data, and Claude Opus 5 beat GLM 5.2 36 wins to 10 on shared tasks, and MiniMax M3 also cleared GLM 28 to 11, which tells you GLM is actually the weakest of the three in direct comparison, even though GLM's vendor-claimed SWE Bench Pro score of 62.1% sounds competitive on paper. Now, GLM 5.2's SWE Bench Pro number of 62.1% is vendor-claimed and not independently verified, so take it as directional, not gospel. The Goldie Bench head-to-heads are third-party scored, and that 36 to 10 gap is too wide to explain away. Claude Opus 5 is genuinely better at first-attempt reasoning on ambiguous tasks, and MiniMax M3 is a real step above GLM, even without published specs. Claude Opus 5 takes test 1, posting an 8.27 out of 10 Goldie Bench average against GLM 5.2's 7.77, and that head-to-head of 36-10 is the kind of gap I didn't expect to be this lopsided. Score is Claude Opus 5.1, GLM 5.2 0, MiniMax M3 0. I've run enough coding agents into walls to know that a half point on a benchmark can mean hours of retry loops in production. Drop a comment if that 36 to 10 head-to-head surprised you too. Test 2, cost per token. At 500,000 output tokens a month, the gap between a cheap model and an expensive one can swing you from a $2 bill to a number you can't even calculate because pricing isn't published. And for 2 of these 3 models, there is no public number to plug into your budget spreadsheet. GLM 5.2 is the only one with a published price. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. List rate is $1.40 input and $4.40 output per million tokens, and on OpenRouter it drops to 0.07 input and 0.22 output with a 95% discount. Claude Opus 5 and MiniMax M3 have nothing published, so you're flying blind on budget for both of them. GLM 5.2 wins test 2 by default, and it's the only answer you can actually budget around. A median provider rate of 1.35 input per million tokens and 7 cents on OpenRouter. That ties the score at 1 apiece for Claude Opus 5 and GLM 5.2, MiniMax M3 still at 0. Test 3, context and output limits. A long horizon agent run on a big code base can easily chew through 500,000 tokens of context before it's done. Hit your model's window limit mid-run and the job resets. The cost doubles, and you've got a partial commit sitting in your repo that nobody wants to untangle. I checked every published spec across all 3 models, and once again only GLM 5.2 has numbers on the board. A 1 million token context window and 128,000 output tokens max. Claude Opus 5 and MiniMax M3 have nothing published in any of the sources I checked, which means for long agent runs you're betting on specs you can't verify. GLM 5.2 takes test 3, and the 1 million token window is a genuine asset for long horizon runs, roughly 5 times what GLM 5.1 had. That puts GLM 5.2 out front 2 to 1 over Claude Opus 5. MiniMax M3 still at 0. So GLM 5.2 has the price and the context window, but speed and deployment are still on the table, and those two tests are where the real-world build decision gets messy. If GLM 5.2's throughput can't keep up with your agent's output demands, that cheap token price stops mattering. Pretty fast. Let's find out. Test 4. Output tokens per second. A coding agent generating a 10,000 token function at 10 tokens per second is sitting there for 16 minutes while your pipeline stalls. At 130 tokens per second, that same job finishes in under 80 seconds. For high-volume runs, throughput is the number that decides whether your agent is actually usable or just theoretically cheap. Artificial analysis clocked GLM 5.2 at 129.8 tokens per second median across providers, with the fastest providers hitting over 220 tokens per second, and that's for a 753 billion parameter MOE model, which is pretty impressive. Claude Opus 5 and MiniMax M3 have no published speed figures anywhere I could find, so again it's GLM 5.2 as the only model with a real number. GLM 5.2 takes test 4, 129.8 tokens per second median, and I didn't expect a model this size to clock that kind of throughput. Score is now GLM 5.23, Claude Opus 5.1, MiniMax M3 0. Test 5, Deployment and Ecosystem. You're shipping a coding agent to a client with strict data residency rules, and the model you picked is API only with no self-hosting option. That's not a minor inconvenience, that's a block deal. License type and harness maturity are the things that kill or unlock your whole deployment plan before a single token gets generated. GLM 5.2 is MIT licensed with open weights, so you can self-host it on deep infra, open router, or your own hardware, and that's a real deployment unlock. Claude Opus 5's strength is on the other axis. Community reports consistently put it as the best fit for the Claude code harness with a rich plugin ecosystem, though that's directional, not a measured spec. Deployment is a tie, different wins on completely different axes, open weights for GLM 5.2 and harness maturity for Claude Opus 5. Final score, GLM 5.23, Claude Opus 5.1, MiniMax M3 0, 1 tied. Claude Opus 5 is the pick when you need first attempt reliability on hard, ambiguous tasks. It leads Goldie Bench at 8.27 out of 10 across 50 tasks, beats GLM 5.2 36 to 10 head-to-head, and community consensus says it's the strongest model for unattended agent runs on messy repos where the instructions aren't perfectly scoped. GLM 5.2 wins on every measurable spec. The only published API price at 1.35 input per million tokens, a 1 million token context window, 128,000 max output tokens, and an MIT license you can self-host for high-volume, well-scoped coding work where you're watching the token bill. GLM 5.2 is the only model where you can actually run the math before you build. MiniMax M3 is the dark horse. It beats GLM 5.2 28 to 11 on Goldie Bench shared tasks, which means head-to-head it's clearly the stronger reasoner of those two. No published pricing or specs is a real gamble, but if you want a budget option that still outperforms GLM 5.2 on reasoning quality, the head-to-head data says MiniMax M3 is worth the risk. If you need first-try reliability on hard reasoning and cost is secondary, Claude Opus 5 is your pick. If you're running high-volume, well-scoped code and need a real number for your budget, GLM 5.2 is the only model you can actually plan around at a published rate. And if you want a reasoning step up over GLM 5.2 without caring about missing specs, MiniMax M3's 28 to 11 head-to-head says it earns that shot. The 36 to 10 Goldie Bench gap is the number that matters most. Opus 5 wins on quality, GLM 5.2 wins on everything you can measure. One thing that didn't show up in the benchmarks, GLM 5.2 has a known overthinking problem. Community reports say it burns extra tokens on verbose internal reasoning before it outputs, so even at 0.07 per million on Open Router, your effective cost per useful output token creeps up fast on complex prompts. The list price says cheap, the token burn says watch your output logs. Now, GLM 5.2 keeps showing up in these coding matchups, so I went deeper on it. Check out the full breakdown in Claude Opus 5 versus DeepSeek V4 Flash versus GLM 5.2, where the context window and token efficiency story gets a lot more interesting when you add a third strong reasoner into the mix.